Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins-Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'm going to continue my breakdown of the Pokemon box and discuss my favorite location for the end of the hunt. Let's begin! One of the biggest challenges I found in the Pokemon box hunt is getting all the potential clues to line up to a single location. The chapter is 10 pages long, including pictures, and covers a lot of ground from New Orleans to Portland, Maine, and then to the story about the Froakie. It's a lot to connect. My strategy to tackling this challenge has been to break the story into parts and then just try to come up with the best possible solve for that part, independent of all the rest. I know for many of you that watch my videos, it may seem like I'm all over the place, and that's because I am. In past hunts, I've found that if I get too focused on a single area and it turns out to be wrong, then I've just spent all my time trying to force clues to fit my preferred location. In the end, I would have been better served entertaining lots of possibilities because they often get better and better the more I explore. So, with that in mind, on today's video, I'm going to discuss a place in Arkansas that I think connects best with the clues at the end of the hunt. The first line I want to discuss is this one that reads, "The Greninja also introduced me to a wise golem who happened to have a great idea about where we could hide our treasure." Now, a wise golem can mean many things. In Pokemon, a golem looks like this, kind of like a strange combination of a rock and a turtle. This image opens up a lot of possibilities, but instead, I think the golem clue might be directing us towards the Jewish definition of a golem, which is an animated anthropomorphic being created entirely from inanimate material, such as mud or clay. And specifically, I think the Wise Golem JCB is referring to could be the Christ of the Ozarks monument in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Now, I know what you must be thinking. Yo, HT, I get why you think a monument of Jesus qualifies as wise, but a golem? How does that work? Great question. Well, the Christ of the Ozarks monument has an unusual design. According to Wikipedia, this has led some people to come up with nicknames for the monument. Nicknames like our milk carton with arms and Gumby Jesus. It's the second nickname, Gumby Jesus, that I think could connect with the golem clue. You see, Gumby was a popular claymation animated character that originated in the 1950s. So if we look again at the definition of a Jewish golem, you see that Gumby is indeed an animated anthropomorphic being created entirely from inanimate material, such as mud or clay. Also, hey, Jesus was Jewish, so that fits as well. But the part that I really like about this possible connection is that Gumby had a best friend, a horse named Pokey, and they would go on adventures together. So Gumby, being somewhat human-like, could be called Pokey's man, which could be JCB's way of having some fun with the title of the box. The other thing that I like about the Christ of the Ozarks statue being the Wise Golem is that the line in the story tells us that he had a great idea of where to hide the treasure. The Christ of the Ozarks statue overlooks the Great Passion Play area just to the east of Eureka Springs. This is where a retelling of the last week of Jesus' life is rendered in a large-scale dramatic production in an outdoor amphitheater. So the great idea and the Great Passion Play fits as well. But my favorite part of the solve is still to come. At the end of the story, JCB writes, "That night, as I rested back in my hotel room, I opened my phone to review the pictures I had taken. To my dismay, almost every photo I'd shot was terribly overexposed. Perhaps it had something to do with taking photographs of expanded reality. I had no idea. Oddly, only one photo was preserved well enough to make any sense out of it. I don't remember taking this photo, although I do reckon it was closer to the end of our day. This snapshot is now the only evidence that any of this adventure ever happened at all. I felt the least I could do was share it with you in this book." So let's start with the word overexposed. I think he deliberately chose this word for a clue. I mean, it's really hard to accidentally overexpose photos on your phone these days, especially when taking pictures outside. So if it is a clue, well, what could it mean? Well, going back to the Christ of the Ozarks statue, Christ is sometimes represented by the letter X. You see this in the abbreviation Xmas for Christmas at the holidays. So the word expose could mean Christ pose, like the one depicted in the Christ of the Ozarks monument. I'm not sure about this, but I do believe JCB likes to use words with EX in them to point to clues in the text. This could be one more instance of that. Then there's the line, I do reckon it was closer to the end of our day. Now, the word reckon, it's an unusual choice, one that we don't see too often in print, and also one that I don't believe appears anywhere else in the treasure book. So this makes it a strong clue possibility in my opinion. And if the Christ of the Ozarks statue is the Wise Golem, then I think it makes sense to think of reckon and end of our day in biblical terms. What comes to mind for me is Judgment Day, a day of reckoning, or the end of days. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I have done a bit of research and learned that the part of the Bible that talks about the end of days or the apocalypse coming is the book of Revelation. And since every good treasure hunter craves that aha moment when everything comes together, I think it's good to point out that another phrase for having an aha moment is to have a revelation. And all of this leads me to the fact that there are a bunch of hiking and biking trails that are free to the public all around the Great Passion Play area near Eureka Springs. They are all biblical named, and sure enough, one of them is called Revelation. Maybe a trail named after the book of Revelation is why JCB finishes the Pokemon box chapter with this line. I felt the least I could do was share it with you in this book. Perhaps JCB is sharing the location of the treasure on the trail named after the book of Revelation. Now, one big problem with this solve is that the hiking and biking trails around the Great Passion Play area are technically on private land that belongs to the nonprofit organization that performs the Great Passion Play. So this could very well disqualify the area as a treasure hiding spot, even though the trails are free for the public to use. Who knows? I like this solve regardless. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that it helps you with your hunt.